This is ABTV, Animal Bites Television. For animal lovers, by animal lovers.
Leopard geckos certainly are one of the most popular pet reptiles around the world for many reasons. None more than the fact that they're absolutely adorable. Well, it happens to be breeding season for leopard geckos here at BHB, so if you're ever thinking about reproducing leopard geckos, we're going to cover step by step how to do that. My name is Brian Barczyk. I'm no zoologist, just a guy with a passion for animals, and that passion often takes me on animal adventures around the world. This week, I'll be talking about leopard gecko breeding. You're watching Snake Bites. So what makes a leopard gecko such a popular pet animal? I tell you, it's a handful of things. Number one, the fact that, again, they're so adorable. But more importantly, it's the ease of husbandry. They're one of those animals that is just unbelievably easy to care for. Now, most lizards need special lighting. Fortunately, with geckos, because they're nocturnal, you don't need UVB light, which makes it really practical for someone that doesn't have a lot of money to have some really expensive setup. Also, just the ease of care. I feed my leopard geckos mealworms about 95% of the time. The only time we supplement them with other food is typically during the breeding season, and I'll cover that in a little bit, where we just give them either roaches or crickets that are dusted to just beef them up a little bit. But it's so cool, the fact that you can feed these guys little mealworms and never have to worry about noise or bugs jumping around, so that makes it a huge plus. They don't need a lot of heat, although they do need a heat spot. So all of these things combined, as well as the fact that they're kind of an apartment-sized pet, right? The fact that they only get this large means that you can keep them in a very small aquarium or a very small cage, which makes that a huge benefit. Certainly one of the other things that makes leopard geckos so popular is the fact that they come in so many paint jobs. You can virtually get any color you want almost under the sun of leopard geckos, whether it's an albino or a yellow or an orange or even black animals and all white ones. These guys are such amazing ambassadors to the reptile world. But this show is really more about breeding. We'll be covering some husbandry tips along the way, but first I want to talk about breeding. Of course, if you get a baby leopard gecko, the first thing you have to do is raise it up to adulthood, and that's really pretty quick and easy when it comes to leopard geckos. These guys hatch out at about 2 to 4 grams in size, so they're little tiny babies, and you need to get them at least 45 grams for females and about 35 to 45 grams for males in order to breed them. Now, ironically enough, you can get a leopard gecko from the time it hatches till the time it's ready to breed up to size in about 8 to 9 months, so it certainly doesn't take long. Okay, so let's say you have your leopard geckos up to size, all over 45 to 55 grams and ready to breed. I'm going to go over some really quick husbandry issues, which is really simple, and how I'm actually breeding this and the philosophy behind it. The first thing I'm going to do is use a 28 quart Rubbermaid. You can use anything, whatever size, as long as it's big enough for them to live in. And I actually have a little hide box that will also double act as a lay box too. Now, it's important with leopard geckos to keep enough humidity so that they don't get stuck shed. So this works perfect for it. And as you can see here, here's a bunch of Murphy's patternless leopard geckos here. And you can see in this cage, there's actually 3 in the hide box and 1 back there. I actually put 4 female leopard geckos per cage. That's just the way I do it. Now, you can do 1-to-1. You know, some people even go 5 or 6 female per cage, but for me, 4 seems to work really well. And as long as they're all females, they cohabitate completely fine. But you do have to keep track. If you start to notice one female's getting a little bit thin, or you see that tail starting to shrink up a little bit, that's the telltale sign. It's great with leopard geckos because as soon as you see that tail slimming out, you know that they're losing too much body fat. And it might just mean that one of the females is beating another one up. Get it out of the cage, you can replace it or set her on her own and you're really good. And I want to talk about what's in the bottom of this nest box right here. We use Eco Earth, which is just kind of a fibrous type of material that keeps humidity really well. It's really easy for them to dig in so that they can lay their eggs and bury them so that those eggs don't dehydrate. Now, I've heard of people using vermiculite, perlite, a whole bunch of other stuff, but you do have to keep in mind that sometimes leopard geckos will actually eat the substrate. You don't want to get impacted at all. So sand, sometimes vermiculite can actually get in there and impact the animal and they could actually die. So be careful. For me, EcoEarth works perfect. As you can see, I'm just using paper as my substrate. Personally, I like paper mainly because it's super easy to clean, it's really sanitary, and they can't eat it. Again, you always have to worry a little bit about geckos eating stuff and get impacted. So newspaper to me is really good. But one of the other things I want to show you guys that's really cool about leopard geckos is the fact that they're almost like dogs where they get potty trained. They'll always kind of go to the bathroom in the same spot. So all the animals in this cage will continue to migrate right over to this spot and they'll do their duty right there, which makes it really easy to clean up, right? So they're not going all over the place and making their cage super dirty. So it's almost like little reptilian dogs, which I think is pretty cool. But other than that, I'm just putting a dish of water in there, of course, just water so that they can potentially drink. We always want really nice fresh water. Usually every 3 or 4 days you want to change that out. And then food is very important. Again, we feed only mealworms for the most part. And again, these are just, you know, whether they're Vitabugs or normal mealworms, whatever, it works out completely fine. Now you want to give them a relatively fair amount. You know, each female is going to maybe eat, you know, 15 or 20 mealworms per week when she's really putting on weight. And so, you know, we basically just pile that on. Now the next part is really super important, especially during the breeding season, and that's vitamin and supplements. What we do here is a multivitamin mixed with a calcium supplement. So this is actually something that's called Vionate. We mix 3 parts of the Vionate, which is the multivitamin, with 1 part of pure calcium, just to get that calcium level up, because these females are going to use a lot of energy to produce those eggs. One female is going to have 2 eggs up to 6 times, sometimes even 7 times per year. That is a lot of calcium that they need to keep up. So again, 3 parts Vionate or multivitamin to 1 part calcium. And basically I just take a scoop like this and I powder the mealworms, give them a really nice powder. And sometimes I'll actually put a dish of just the vitamins in there. Believe it or not, as the season goes on, the female will go up and just eat vitamins without even bugs in them, which makes it really cool. Now, the other thing I'll do is sometimes I'll feed superworms to females, only a couple per female, just again to beef them up. And then during the breeding season, I often once a week will go around and just feed crickets to the females, but that's just during the breeding season, again, just to put weight on because they're expending so much energy. Before we get any further into the breeding thing, one of the things I always talk about with reptiles is that they're really cool for pets because they don't make noise, they don't smell really too much, but there's one gecko I have to show you guys that, you know, although it's not a loud noise, and it certainly isn't going to make noise when you're not around, but check this little monkey out. I just love him. He's got so much personality. This is just a hypo, but come take a look at this. Come up here, check this out. Look at this. If you just touch him, he gets really mad. So it's not exactly an attack German Shepherd, but I just had to show you guys that the thing that's really cute about geckos is the fact that they can vocalize. Just like this guy. And this is one of my only geckos that does this, and I just had to show you. Every time that just kills me with cuteness. All right, so back to breeding leopard geckos after that cute little display from that hypo leopard gecko. Now, you see we keep these guys 4 females per cage. Well, you might ask yourself, well, does the male just breed all 4 females? Well, the truth is a male can breed up to 12 or even more females. So what we typically do is we'll have one male that's dedicated to 2 and sometimes even 3 cages of 4 females. So again, here we're going up to 12 females per male, but typically right around 8 females is what I like. But before we start breeding them, I want to back up and talk about leopard gecko cooling and the breeding season itself. See, we actually cool them down. Now, not everyone does, but they are typically seasonal breeders with a trigger, okay? So we cool them down to about 65 degrees for up to 2 months, and that's their trigger. Once they come out of hibernation, they're ready to breed. Now, you don't have to cool them, but what happens is that once the first year that female produces, so let's say she's going to produce eggs in May, she's going to typically need to produce every year around May. So she's not going to breed at November or December, but what's really cool about leopard geckos is if you want to produce in in December. You can actually raise them up, not breed them, and cool them down, let's say September and October, breed them in November, and you're going to get eggs in December. So you can manipulate their cycle by a cool down, which is pretty cool. But let's get back to it. Now that we have them up, about a week after they come up, we feed them, we get them nice and beefy, and we start putting males in with females. Again, what I'm going to do, and you can see we have a tag here for a male. This animal happens to be a snow, and it's in the A column, drawer number 4 on the right side. So I always know where this male goes back to give him a rest, because what we're going to do is we're going to cycle these guys through and kind of flip them through cages from Monday through Friday, usually giving them 2 days. So Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, we switch them, and then we usually give them the weekend off. But let's just take a look at one thing really quick so that you have an understanding the difference between males and females. The first thing I want to show you is a male is going to have these little bulges down here at the base of his tail, and he's going to have these big pores above his anal vent. That's how you tell a male. Whereas a female, on the other hand, pretty much smooth. She's going to have little tiny lumps, but they're nothing like a male, and of course she's not going to have those pores. So that's how you tell if you have a male or female, if you don't know already. And then I'm just going to flip them through again every day or every other day, switching them into a new female cage. Now, interestingly enough, once a female lays good eggs and we're keeping track of what's laying, you can actually stop breeding because they'll retain the sperm for quite a period of time. Some people will breed them one time. Once they get fertile eggs, they're done for the season, and the female is going to continue to lay. We breed them about halfway through the season just to make sure our fertility stays really high. So that's the next step. And then just make sure you're feeding them really good, because these males are going to get beat up breeding all those females. Let's face it, breeding 12 females in a week, it's a lot of work. All right, so let's say that everything goes perfectly. You're breeding them. Typically about 2 weeks after you start breeding them, you're going to start to see the first eggs being laid, which is really cool. That's the time of the year that we're all excited about. I want to just take you through kind of the process of us going and collecting the eggs, as well as how we set them up. Now, these are really cool here. These are actually leopard gecko egg trays from THG. They're super cool because they set right in a deli cup. This is a 16-ounce deli cup, and you can put the eggs right in the slot. You can organize them. You can put actually 4 clutches, keep those 4 clutches separate right in the same thing, which is awesome. Now, it actually comes with a little bit of a water thing that kind of absorbs into a gel for humidity, which is great. We just use Hatch-Rite. That's just always been the kind of medium that I personally like. So I put about this much Hatch-Rite in the bottom. Now, the thing that's cool about Hatch-Rite is that you don't have to add anything to it. So it's kind of like a perlite type of substance, but it has a water isomer built right into it, so it keeps that humidity up, which is great because you just open the bag, you put it in there, you forget about it. Now, I don't put any holes whatsoever in my deli cups, but I do want to open them up maybe once a week or so to kind of let that air recirculate, because you got to remember, eggs are breathing, right? So as they respirate, they're giving off carbon dioxide. If you don't recirculate that air, they can actually suffocate in the egg. We don't want that. So that's basically your basic setup right there. Hatch-Rite or whatever kind of incubation of medium, your egg tray, and of course a deli cup that fits, lid that fits really secure, and you're all set. So let's just go ahead and look at some eggs. Now, this is how leopard geckos lay. You can always kind of tell when you open up a cage of females, and these have been getting bred for about 2.5 weeks now. We're just starting to get eggs. When you open up the box, if you notice, look at how they're excavating, right? This part has hardly any medium whatsoever, or the eco earth, and this side is built up. That tells me that they probably dug it out, laid their eggs, and now they're packing the eggs with eco earth, which is really cool. So basically, all you want to do is just whoop, there's an egg right there. You see that? It just popped right out. I actually expected all the eggs to be in the back, but there it is. The thing that's cool about leopard gecko eggs is, unlike snake eggs, the embryo will actually rotate, which is good. So if you find an egg that's kind of rolled around, you don't have to worry about candling it, make sure the embryo is up. You can actually turn leopard gecko eggs, and it's not going to harm them whatsoever. But me personally, I mean, I try not to move. When I find an egg, I keep it the right side up. So again, these come in pairs, right? So finding one egg means there's probably going to be more eggs. So let's just keep on searching, and sure enough, you'll usually find the 2 eggs pretty close together. So there you have it, a pair of eggs, which is really cool. But there looks like there's probably going to be more. Again, there's 4 females in here, so you never know. Sure enough, I see a little bit. Oh yeah, there's a bunch of eggs in here. So there it is. Out of 4 females, 3 of the 4 laid 6 beautiful eggs, which is just absolutely fantastic. Now, basically, the next step is pretty self-explanatory. If you're breeding reptiles and you don't know how to do that, you might want to stop breeding reptiles. And that's basically just setting the eggs in these little slots. Again, I try not to rotate them, but I don't think it's that big of a deal with leopard geckos. And I just basically set them in the slots. Now, one of the things that's nice about these egg trays is, again, you can keep track of what females have laid. Now, you want to know, like for instance, this cage here, let's just take a look real quick. There's 2 patties, so Murphy patternless, and there's 2 patternless stripe, and it's being bred to an emerine white and yellow. And the emerine is basically just like a little bit of a tangerine that has some green color to it. That's where they call them emerines, and it's of course a white and yellow, which is a codominant. So it's a polygenic emerine to a codominant white and yellow. And I'm just basically going to put this lid on, and I'm going to take my marker and I'm going to mark what cage. This happens to be U11. So once I mark U11, I know exactly which female laid these eggs, and then I'm going to put the date on it just so that I know when they're about to hatch, which is typically about 45 to 60 days depending on your temperature. Now, this is the interesting thing about leopard geckos. They're sex temperature determinate, which basically just means that depending on what you incubate your temperatures at, that's what sex you're going to get offspring. If you incubate them up at about 90 degrees, you're going to get almost all males, and they're going to hatch at 45 days or less even. If you incubate them at, say, 80 or 82, you're going to hatch almost all females, but they're going to go close to 60 days. And if you're right in the middle at, say, 84 to 86, you're going to get males and females. So that's pretty cool. So again, I'm just going to put these in here. I'm going to mark every single one of these so that I know exactly which female it is. So when they hatch, if I hatch out anything really cool and really spectacular, I'm going to know exactly who is responsible for it. As well as when I'm selling it, I now know the genetics behind it. Again, I'm doing an emerine white and yellow to 2 Murphy's patternless females. So basically what ends up happening is I know that these are going to be het for Murphy's patternless, which is kind of important, right? So that I know what I'm raising up for the future stuff. So let's just go ahead and look at this next cage and see if we have anything here too. Let's see. Again, you see what I'm saying? Come take a look real quick. You know, you've got the excavation here where all of this bedding is pushed to the side. That tells me that there's gotta be eggs in here, right? Because these females aren't moving this around just for the heck of it. They want, and look at this animal here. Look at how beautiful that is, man. That's, again, that's an emerine white and yellow I was telling you about. Wow, that male is spectacular, isn't it? So again, let's just kind of slowly move our stuff around here. See where we're at. So far, no eggs. I'm sure there's gotta be eggs back here somewhere. There's just no way they were moving this around. Oh, see that? Now this is an example. This is the first clutches of the year, right? So this is a slug egg right here. You could see those other eggs were nice and plump and kind of, not really white, but certainly plump. You see how this is almost like a little bit of a raisin? That's no good, which is not that uncommon for the first clutches of the year, to be honest with you, because the males have just only been in for a very short period of time. It doesn't mean that the year is wasted whatsoever. It just means that, you know, you got to keep breeding them. And I'm sure that, you know, because he was breeding the cage below it and had fur legs, I guarantee you we're going to get fur legs here. So I can't find the second egg. And every now and then you'll get a female that just misfires and only has 1 ovary that produces, oh, wait a second, wait. Yep, there it is. Actually, see, 2 slugs. I was 100% right. So we'll just go ahead, put this in. And again, you want to keep this bedding a little bit damp, not wet, but damp, so that when they do lay their eggs, that you can make sure that they don't deflate. You know, they need moisture, just like when you're going to incubate them. They're probably at, you know, upper 80s, maybe even 90% humidity during incubation. Let's see what happens here, guys. You know, this is basically the same breeding. That same male is breeding this cage. Now, I've had one cage that had beautiful production, one cage that had a couple slugs. Again, we see the same thing with the bedding here, so we know that there's probably going to be something in here. And fortunately, a bad egg there. That's never a good sign. There's my other bad egg, so that's the pair of bad eggs. And we've got some good ones. So see what I'm saying? That's how the tides kind of change with these guys. They go from, all right, the first clutches they're going to lay, sometimes are iffy. You know, the next clutches get better and better. So we know this male is starting to fertilize. So we've got 2 eggs here. Let's see if there's anything else. So we've got the, oh, yep, right in the back. Yep, here's another good egg. That's 3 good eggs, which tells me that there's got to be a 4th good egg in here somewhere, I think. Unless, again, a female misfired and only had 1 ovary go. But I don't see a 4th egg. Yeah, it looks like that's it. Female only laid 1 egg. So there's 3 good eggs in here. So again, you kind of see the pattern now. If we keep breeding these guys, those females are going to retain sperm, as well as I'm going to breed them again to make sure they get as much fertility as I possibly can. So again, I can actually use the same box that I used last time because they're separate with these egg trays, which is really cool. So although it's the same male, it's a different female, and I'm going to want to know what box those animals come from, right? So again, now we've just got U9. So I'm going to mark U9 on these with the date just like I did before. U9, the date I did before. And again, for me, I'm going to set the majority of these up at about 80 degrees. So I produce mainly females, but I'm going to incubate about 10 or 15% of them hot so I can produce some males to go along with all those females. So pretty cool, huh? It's really important to know what each cage is doing. So the last thing I'm going to do is every time I collect eggs, I'm going to mark it on the front of the cages. And I just have a real simple process. So today is actually 5/15, and this cage here had 6 good eggs. So I'm just going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, just kind of hash marks. Now, if there were slugs in there, I'm going to use an S. So let's say there was 4 good eggs and 2 slugs. I'm going to do 4 hash marks and 2 S's for slugs. That way I know what the fertility is when they're laying, and I know that there was 4 females in here. 3 of the 4 laid on 5/15. The last one could lay maybe next week. They're going to typically lay another clutch of eggs about 10 days later. So every 10 days you're going to get another group of eggs, which is pretty cool. Let's just keep on hunting for cool eggs. So there you have it. Today we collected over 400 fertile eggs, which is pretty awesome. Sadly, we had about 50 or 60 slugs, which is pretty common for the beginning part of the year, so I'm not that worried about it. I bet you next week when we collect another maybe 400 or 500 eggs, we're going to have a lot less slugs, which is pretty cool. Now again, I'm going to put these guys right up on a shelf, just in an incubation box like this. It stays about 80 degrees up there, so I know I'm going to get almost all females, and any of the ones that I want to produce males with, I'm going to take them and put them in my ball python incubator at about 89 to 90 degrees, and I know that they're going to hatch really quick and they're going to be males. So I hope this helped you if you're inspiring to be a leopard gecko breeder. And as always, guys, I was Facebooking and tweeting my way through collecting all these eggs, so make sure to follow me over at SnakeBytesTV and on Instagram at SnakeBytes.TV. Until next week, you've been watching Snake Bites.
Hi, I'm Peter Birch, an Aussie bloke who loves wildlife. My respect for nature started when I was a young boy in rural New South Wales. Since then, it's exploded into an obsession. New episodes only on AnimalBytesTV.